You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com.
There's lots of stuff I want to talk about today because I don't want to just talk about the Machado Harper thing because these guys are going to drag this out forever.
I know, and the thing is, like, I always try to take some time and just do a little prep for these podcasts. You know, like I don't check Twitter as much, but I mean, I have my my team stream from Bleacher Report,
right? And
everything on there is just Machado Harper, Harper Machado, Machado Harper, Harper Machado. There's nothing really to talk about. I mean, everything at this point, everything is just speculation. And
well, the best thing that I read today that kind of puts it all into perspective. Well, there's been a few things, but we're going to get into it later. But the only thing I'm going to say is that the newest thing that's out on Twitter, the new feeling is that this is going to drag on. And, you know, the signs are all there as to what's actually happening, but I don't want to start the show with it. We have too many things going on here on Sox in the Basement.
So
tonight, we're at Open Outcry.
I know.
And I want to make sure we lead right off talking about it.
This is exciting.
Because it's going to be fun. Now, Open Outcries at 10934 Southwestern Avenue. This podcast is out weekly, so comes out on Wednesday mornings. Wednesday night the 16th, we're at Open Outcry starting at 7 p.m. We want you to come and join us and hang out. We have free Sox in the Basement hats. They've got they're beautiful hats. They're stitched. They have a lot of space around the logo, and we're calling them autograph hats specifically because this is our pre-SoxFest party. You show up, you pick up the hat. You go to SoxFest, you've got something on your head that if you walk by a guy and you're like, holy cow, that's so-and-so, because that happens at SoxFest.
Right.
You don't have to worry that you don't have your piece of memorabilia you're going to get signed. Or you're like, when am I going to have him signed? You have the autograph hat. You see what I'm saying? You're walking around
because there's
with the autograph hat.
There's a whole bunch of, I saw it, they look really good. There's a whole bunch of white area on the actual cap, not the bill, but on the actual cap.
The original design was like any other kind of trucker cap that would have like taken up the whole thing.
Right.
And I wanted space for signatures because my thing was I've been to SoxFest before and I've run into plenty of people in SoxFest when you're walking around that you're like, oh my gosh, it's so, like I ran into Jeff Blum a few years ago.
Nice.
And I'm just walking around. I'm going to get a beer. I'm trying to escape the kids and I'm going to get a beer and I'm trying to escape. And then there's Blummer. He's just standing there. And I'm like, Jeff Blum. I got a picture. I had a picture of me and him in my office, like up on the wall. And people are like, who's that? Your buddy? I'm like, we were buddies for about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah. But I had nothing for him to sign, I remember. Like I was wearing a Kittle jersey. You can't sign that. See what I'm saying?
No.
I can't even sign somebody else's jersey. I wasn't planning on getting autographs at that moment, because like I always will have something. I don't walk around with like 16 things in my hands waiting. What if I run into this guy? What if I run into that guy? And you're always going to get that random person. Like one time I got Steve Stone's autograph on a hat, but it was like a dirty old hat to begin with.
Right.
And I felt silly putting his autograph on it because it wasn't like I was going to display it or anything like that. This is why you have the Sox in the Basement autograph hat. You put it on your head. You walk around SoxFest, you get things signed when you run into somebody, or you can even do it when you go and do the actual signature things. But that was the idea. We were sitting around talking about we wanted to have something special for SoxFest, and I was like, what could actually be used by people? And this is what I came up with. So I'm excited to be handing them out. They will be at Open Outcry tonight, the 16th of January. If you miss it, or if you listen to this podcast and it's already Thursday, don't worry. I'm bringing some to SoxFest as well. Okay,
all right,
Dave and
cool.
I will be at SoxFest for the whole weekend. I've got a room. I've got 2 beds. Don't worry. We don't have to snuggle. But I've got a room for us.
Those aren't pillows.
I'm bringing the equipment. We're going to be all over SoxFest. We're going to be hanging out with people. We're going to have places for you to come and meet us, to hang out, to talk White Sox baseball. So we're going to be there.
Awesome.
But the big thing is Open Outcry tonight, 10934 Southwestern Avenue, starting at 7 o'clock. They got great craft beer. Open Outcry is a brewery. You walk amongst the barrels that they're aging the beer in when they're doing their whiskey barrels or their bourbon barrels or anything like that.
Okay.
They have like a whole great menu of pizzas, everything from like a traditional type of a pizza to like mac and cheese pizza. They do sandwiches. They do these really fun appetizers. They're just like a cool place to hang out. Not too big, not too small. Has a little rooftop area. Yeah, I believe you have to get a reservation for. You might be able to call them tonight because it's wintertime on a
Right.
Wednesday. You know
On
what
a
I'm saying?
Wednesday,
They
yeah.
have igloos that are up there where you can kind of sit inside the igloo.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this,
Yeah,
man.
it's
Like,
really cool. We'll go up and we'll check it out at some point.
Like drinking in an igloo.
Drinking in an igloo.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the top of the roof. I mean, there's good times to be had at Open Outcry. So make sure you stop by starting at 7, at least until 9. But I can't pull myself away from a good bar. So I'll probably be hanging out for
it'll
most
be
of
a
the
little
night.
bit, probably a little
We'll
later.
probably take all the equipment out and just still be hanging out. And it'll be easy for you to find us. I don't know what kind of party it's going to be. Like, my mother's bringing friends. She called me up. She's like, should I get reservations? I'm like, who's coming? She's like, well, your father, your aunt. You know, I'm like, I'm not setting this up for you. I've got enough to worry about. I got to drag out equipment. I got to figure this out. She's like, well, we just want to be in a good spot to hear the show. And I'm like, well, there's going to be a live jazz band there too. I know how much you love jazz.
Yeah,
When they gave me an
well-
option for nights. I saw they had a jazz band. I was like, Dave will get a kick out of this.
Yeah,
and there'll be
no,
some music as well for the party. And I was like, why don't you team us up with the jazz band? So they're on one end of the place and we're on the other end of the place, right up towards the front.
Very cool.
Okay,
Very cool.
So I was like, you know, Ma, I mean, some of it you might hear a few things, but you know, we're gonna also be talking to people. We're gonna have the headsets on. We're gonna be recording a show. There's a lot that's gonna be going on. We've got lots of swag. The White Sox sent us stuff, which is
did
really
they?
oh god, I got White Sox flags, White Sox tote bags, White Sox baseball card sets.
wow.
Oh yeah, they sent
Okay.
me a bunch of stuff. Like I talked to one of their people over there last week, and they're like, hey, we hear you're doing this thing at Open Outcry. I'm like, yeah. They're like, you want us to send you some stuff? And I figured they were going to send me like 2-3 things. They sent me a box.
Oh, wow.
It was insane.
That's
the driver
awesome.
drops the thing off from UPS, and it was just a box of stuff that I have to hand out. So
Shout
all
out,
this,
shout out to the White
shout
Sox
out to the
front
White
office.
Sox,
Yeah,
which is really
man,
nice
That's
of them.
awesome.
So
Thank you, guys.
we're going to have that to add into what we have to hand out from Sox in the Basement. Should be a good time. Make sure you're there for some drinks and some fun and some pre-SoxFest stuff. And who knows, maybe Manny Machado will be signed tonight. Although I totally doubt it. I do.
Maybe he'll show up at Open Outcry. Maybe they'll be like, maybe Manny will sign and he'll be like, hey,
That's what I want.
where's one of the coolest bars in Chicago?
I want Rick
and then
Hahn
he's gonna be
walking
like,
in with Manny Machado.
and then he's gonna be
in
like, wow,
Sox in
yeah,
the
this,
Basement tonight.
this place Open Outcry. That'll happen.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
Also, an update, our guest that we had last week, Brad Biley, an hour after, actually less than an hour after last week's episode posted, with him telling the story about bringing his dad to Chicago. And in the story, he said, all I was able to give him was Southwest Airlines tickets because I was waiting for individual tickets to go on sale. I had a message from a fan of this podcast who asked to remain anonymous, who offered not only amazing tickets for free to him and his family, but stadium club passes.
Whoa.
And I just want to say right now, that speaks volumes about White Sox fans. That's a Saturday night in Chicago in late July against the Twins.
Wow.
And somebody was like, yeah, man, that was such a cool story. You let him contact me. And I just passed the information along, and I was like, contact this guy. They're going to hook you up. So I love you guys. I love
That's
everybody who
awesome.
listens
Thank
to this
you.
podcast.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
better
you.
than, well, I just offered him beers. Somebody else offered him like all of that. I felt cheap after that happened.
Well, you know.
Yeah, well, because I am cheap. Did you see the new SoxFest attendees? I'm excited about a specific name.
No, I missed it.
Now,
Run it down for me,
You've
please.
seen the actual list, right? Who's coming or no?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, I'll make this quick because reading them off. I'll just read them off real quick. Abreu's going to be there. Tim Anderson's going to be there. Delmonico, Engel, Jace Fry, Leary Garcia, who line up for that autograph. Okay, Giolito's going to be there. Kopech's going to be there. Reynaldo Lopez is going to be there. Machado is going to be there. Our guy, Daniel Pelka's going to be there. The two additions to the current players, Yomer Sanchez now going to be there.
Nice.
I'm really hoping there's like an interactive pour something on Yomer
It's
thing.
like a Yomer.
Right, or-
it's like a, you know what it'll be? It'll be like the anti-dunk tank.
Right, or maybe
you throw a ball and hit something and then like something just dumps on his head.
I'm saying Gatorade thing with confetti. Every once in a while in the middle of like a symposium, Yomer just comes out in the middle of it, interrupts it, pours confetti over himself, laughs like a hyena, and runs out of the place.
That's pretty awesome.
That would make SoxFest just magical for me. That would be awesome.
Nice.
Prospect-wise, Mick Rodolfo, Luis Basabe, Dylan Cease, Zach Collins, Eloy Jimenez,
Wow.
Nick Madrigal, Louis Robert, and Zebi Zavala was just added.
Oh, nice.
That's a great list of prospects, all guys that are challenging to be on this roster. Maybe one or two of them this year, most of them coming in 2020. Okay. Also just added, Ozzy's coming.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Ozzy's coming. Our boy Ron Kittle's coming. We've been exchanging stuff on Twitter.
Okay.
We're hoping to hook up with Ronnie while we're there. Okay, he knows we're coming.
Nice.
So Ron's gonna be there. Bo's coming. Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson. All right.
Bo's
nice.
gonna be there. And then the name that I couldn't believe it when I saw it. John Cangelosi's going to be there.
What?
John Cangelosi's going to be there.
Oh, man.
If you go back to one of the first
That's
podcasts,
your guy, dude.
I
That's
think I
your
told the
guy.
story about how I met John Cangelosi
Yeah,
as
in
a
the
kid.
bank parking lot or something. That's your guy,
in the
man.
first Chicago parking lot before they were even Bank of America or whatever it was, when the ATMs were just invented. And John Cangelosi's struggling with the ATM machine, and I'm standing as a little kid behind him with my dad, and my dad just leans over to this guy while he's trying to punch his pin in and goes, John Cangelosi? And then John Cangelosi's so excited somebody recognized him that he brings us out to his car, this big metal hunk of junk, early 80s, late 70s model car. I just remember it was like one of those big ones that was like squeaked when you opened the trunk. You know what I'm saying? It was just pure metal.
It's like that car in the Victory Auto Wreckers commercial.
That's the original Victory Autos
the
one.
door comes off.
That's what he was driving. He was driving that car.
That's
and he
awesome.
opens it up, and he's got nothing but memorabilia. He's got John Cangelosi signed hats. He's got John Cangelosi signed pictures.
He's
got
case.
John Cangelosi signed baseballs. Like he sat around one night and just signed a bunch of stuff in case somebody
recognized him. Yeah.
At 84th and Kedzie, where we were at, or 85th and Kedzie, I think is where that bank. There's still a bank there.
That bank is still there.
Okay,
it's
just called something
it's a
else.
Chase now. Yeah.
Right. I was in that bank parking lot in 1984 or something like that, or 1980. I don't know when John Cangelosi was there. All I know is I was a kid. It's one of my fondest White Sox random memories, that meeting Billy Pearson in Hayes Park. And he just handed me everything. He gave me a glove. He gave me a ball. He gave me a bat. I walked out with so much stuff. My dad and him, I think he actually popped beers and started drinking in the parking lot with my father. That's my recollection. It was old school, baby.
Back then, it wouldn't surprise me.
I need to find me some John Cangelosi at SoxFest.
Oh, dude,
he's my white whale at SoxFest. Him and Kitty, okay? I want to see Kitty again. I've met him before, but I want to find me some John Cangelosi. I want to buy John Cangelosi a beer for all the stuff that he gave me when I was a little kid. That's what I want. That's my mission. At SoxFest, I want to buy John Cangelosi a beer. I want me, Cangelosi, and Kittle sitting at Kitty O'Shea's having a beer. That's my goal at SoxFest.
Nice.
If it happens, I'll record it. Or I won't record it. I'll just keep it for my own personal self.
It's the middle of the show song. 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 Chris had nothing to put here, so he put this song. It's the middle of the show song.
Before we get to the Machado Harper stuff.
Okay.
And trust me, I've got some insight into it, but why waste time on this? Let's turn our attention to more interesting things. Something I was doing this week is I was getting my fantasy baseball team together. Now,
okay.
Don't worry, I'm not going to nerd out on you.
No, it's fine.
But I'm in a league where you keep everybody. It's 40-man rosters, 25 of them go to the majors.
What do they call it? Like
a dynasty league.
A dynasty
Right.
league. That's what it is.
And then you keep 15 guys in the minors. And the only rules about guys is that you can only keep 4 guys the next year that are 30-year-old or older. So anybody who's under 30 is automatically can be held on your team if you choose to hold on to them.
Okay.
Anybody that's over 30, you only get to keep 4 of them. Then there's a free agent draft that takes like a whole month. Like guys just take their time during spring training, that month of spring training, like picking up the guys that people couldn't hold on to. There's trades and everything.
Right.
Like
So
there's
it's not
trades
like
year round. Guys are constantly evaluating.
So it's not like your typical fantasy football draft
No.
where you're just trying to pick up everybody.
No,
in
I own
like
my
2
guys.
hours or
I own my
whatever.
guys. I've had Jose Altuve since forever, and he's going to be on my team, and I'm just going to use him up. That's why I have back-to-back championships the last 2 years.
Nice.
It's one of the big reasons for it. But I just wanted to tell you about something that I looked at this week because I'm getting ready for it. And I know that you always hear stuff about prospects, and you're going to get people that are either A, always around the team, B, see them in person and are enamored with a player because that's like their favorite player, or you're going to get people that are out of town and they're kind of guessing, and you're going to get a few experts. But the one thing that I think is the most non-biased thing in the world is when you look at fantasy rankings. And this is why.
Okay.
Fantasy rankings just take into account numbers, and if they think the guy is going to actually play this year. Like, is the guy going to be a good player? Is he going to contribute? And is he going to put up the kind of numbers you could score points on compared to other players in baseball?
Right. It's
See
simply
what I'm saying?
it's totally
you can love Moncada.
It's totally black
Right.
and white. I mean, there's no emotion in it.
No, you can love a guy like Moncada, but if you don't think he's going to have a good year, like last year, he wasn't rated very high as somebody that you'd want to go pick up, even though they were going to get his first year in the majors. Because even though we were excited here in Chicago, A lot of fantasy experts were like, yeah, that's great, but he's not even going to crack the top 15 second baseman, so why would you even draft him?
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's more of a realistic way of looking at a guy compared to other players and what they project, because this is how these guys make their money is they have to be good at projecting players. So before I look at the fantasy ones, let me just give you a quick ranking of the White Sox according to MLB.com. Now, this is their end of 2018 top 100 list. They're going to be putting out the beginning of 2019 list. I don't know why it would change so much in the offseason, maybe winter ball or whatever. Maybe certain things moved around. Maybe they think a guy has a better opportunity. But this is the end of the year list in Major League Baseball, just White Sox players in the top 100. Eloy's number 3. Michael Kopech's number 19. Dylan Cease is 25th. Lewis Roberts 44th. Nick Madrigal is 49th. Dane Dunning is 54th. And Blake Rutherford is 77th.
Okay.
Now, those are the guys that are in the top 100. Rounding out the top 10, because that's only 7, the other 3 guys in the top 10 for the White Sox are Collins at catcher, Luis Basabe, and pitcher Alec Hansen. Those are the top 10. Now, I go to CBS.com where they're breaking down the 2019 Fantasy Baseball top 100 prospects. These are the guys that they're saying could have an impact this year, or if you're in a dynasty league, you might want to grab them because they're going to be worth something very, very soon.
Right.
All right, so let's go down the list here, and I just want to read you the comments and get your reactions to them.
Okay.
Eloy Jimenez, rated 2. He's second on their prospect list for fantasy, right behind Vlad Guerrero.
Right. So
Eloy, his impact that he's expected to have is that he's going to be fighting for a job this spring. That's basically saying he's going to fight for a job, but we all know Rick Hahn already came out and basically said it. He ain't starting the season on the team. I think they went down, they had a meal. Remember when they signed his brother? And they told him, Eloy, we're going to put this to rest right now. I'm sure Eloy was like, I just want you to be honest with me. And he's like, you're not starting the season with the team. We want control. So we won't play games if you don't play games. Because he had no problem coming out and saying it to the press this week. Hahn made comments specifically saying Eloy Jimenez would not start the season with the White Sox. So they're going to hold him until they get past Super 2, and then he's going to come up. I think if you think otherwise, you're nuts. I'm not saying you have to agree with it or not agree with it, but that's what's going to happen. So he's sitting right up at the top of that list.
And we've talked about it, how it's pretty unlikely that that's going to, Eloy is probably not going to harbor any ill will later on in his career when it comes to signing that first big contract. He's not going to be, you guys held me back and for a couple of extra years, so I'm not signing with you guys. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
Chris Bryant would refuse the Cubs money if they had the best offer on the table when he hits free agency?
No, it's ridiculous.
You think he would do that?
No.
Because he went through the same thing? No, it's not going to happen.
We talked about it. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. All right. Kopech, 16th in fantasy. Now, I want you to think about that. This is a list that's supposed to tell you the most valuable prospects for fantasy baseball in 2019.
That's interesting.
And beyond. And he's not expected to play in 2019. That's how much they value him for the future. They're telling you if in a draft.
Get him now.
Get him and hold him for a whole year.
Because in 2020.
He's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I read. It's incredible, but that's what they're saying. They're like, Eve, if you have any room on your roster, just put him on there and bite the bullet, okay? Here's the guy that I was excited to see up high on the list. 32nd on the list, Dylan Cease.
Right.
They have him as a midseason hopeful. We've been saying that already. He's going to have the same kind of trend as Michael Kopech.
Right, because they're not going to have him start. You've got plenty of pitchers at this point.
He's going to come up later in the year when he's ready.
He's going to come up later when he's ready. Right.
He's going to pitch in AAA.
We've talked about this.
He's going to pitch in AAA this year, and as long as everything is good, he's coming to the majors Kopech style in the hopes that he's in the starting rotation at the beginning of 2020.
Because he did not, correct me if I'm wrong, but he did not pitch in AAA last year at all.
No, he pitched in AA.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He did not pitch in AAA. Now, here's the interesting thing. Fantasy guys swapped Robert and Madrigal. And now here's why.
Interesting.
They have Madrigal at 41, up 8 spots from what MLB has, okay? But here's the reason. This is what I thought was interesting. These are guys that are paid to think of the impact of a player on this season for people that are looking for long-term fantasy prospects and then beyond. They actually have his 2009 fantasy impact listed as cup of coffee. What it says is you're going to see him at some point. Even if it's September call-ups, their belief at the beginning of the year, analyzing the positions, analyzing the Sox needs, analyzing how he's doing in the minors, analyzing the fact that he hasn't even gotten above high class A, and he's going to start in Double-A this year. They believe that he will make some sort of jump to at least come up at the end of the year.
Before Robert does.
Before Robert, who is not expected, because they have him rated about 5, 6, 7 spots below him, he is not expected to come up to the majors, and he has the exact same trajectory. Rookie, low Class A, high Class A, just like what Madrigal played in 2018. The same 3 spots.
Well, my thoughts...
So they see the possibility the White Sox might want to see this kid because he just makes contact constantly.
My thoughts on it, the Madrigal thing are versus the Robert thing are this. Robert was never supposed to be up in 2019 anyway. That considering also the outfield depth,
I don't think he's up in 2020. I think he's a mid-season hopeful in 2020.
The outfield, right. So he was never supposed to be up in 19. Also considering the outfield depth that the White Sox have. We've talked about that. Madrigal is interesting because what that tells you is that the people who make these rankings think there could be a potential need at second base.
Let's talk about this Machado Harper thing as quickly as we can
please. Quickly,
I do want to tell you, I did say that I felt like by the time this show aired that Manny Machado would be signed.
You're going to have to back that up, dude.
And trust me, you thought I was dead on a couple days ago when the reports came out that the White Sox had upped the offer to 8 years and $250. See what I'm saying?
Right.
That was reported by several sources, and then something really interesting happened. And we always talk about the idea of instead of trying to project what we want, let's look at what is actually happening. Let's try to cut through the BS and look at what's actually happening. All of a sudden, the guys that generally are being used by baseball clubs or agents start arguing on Twitter over whether or not that's true.
I have noticed that.
Okay.
I have noticed that.
And then all the local media members start saying that a source has told us that the Sox haven't gone over to 7 years. A source says that that's incorrect. A source says this, a source says that. Then Major League Baseball's Twitter account puts out something that says that it's 8 years and $250 million is what the White Sox have offered.
Right.
And the whole spin on this is because the Phillies have gone hard at Harper, and the Sox are saying, fine, let them go at Harper. We're making our pitch at Machado right now while their backs are turned. And that somebody in the Phillies brass, as a source, had relayed out to some media members that they felt they couldn't get Machado because the White Sox were going to match or beat any offer that the Phillies could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I read.
Right.
Then all of a sudden the kibosh is put on. And then the MLB Twitter account takes down that thing.
Oh, about the 8 years, $250
they
for
take
Machado.
it down with no other thing.
Wow.
Meanwhile, ESPN's guys and the original guys who reported it have not backed down.
They're still staying.
They have not changed what they were saying.
Now, I've heard local Twitter guys that are saying, no, that's not the case because the White Sox don't want to outbid themselves.
Here was the most telling thing that I saw. Our boy, James Fox from the Loop Sports, who's been on this show multiple times.
Right. We like James a lot.
Tweets out the other night, that same source has been talking to everybody tonight. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk to James about it. This is slight speculation, but I believe that James probably even got a phone call too. And there was somebody coming out of the White Sox organization. That's what I believe. That wants to stop this now because we've moved to the point where negotiations are happening in the media. And why is that happening? Because nobody wants to outbid what the White Sox currently have on the table. And Manny Machado's agents, that's not enough. I promised my guy more. And the Sox are like, hey man, until somebody outbids us, we're not outbidding ourselves. And that's what they're doing. And now we're going to drag on for a while. Jason Stark, one of the people reporting just yesterday, this could go into February now, which is just going to break your heart. But you know what? How would you feel if you found out later the White Sox outbid on Machado by so much that it was gross? Think about how this town gets angry. Mitch Trubisky had a great year, I thought, this year as his first real year in the NFL with a real coach and a real offense.
Yes, he did.
And there's still people upset because, the Bears bid against themselves, trading up that one spot and screwed themselves over.
Give me a break.
See what I'm saying?
Give me a break.
But that still happens.
No,
so that's what's going to happen here. If we give him $300 million over 10 years and it turns out that we could have gotten him for less years and less money, even though some people will poo-poo it, a lot of people will be like, this is great, Manny's here. The first time Manny Machado has problems, is injured, or when he gets old and there's extra years on there, people will be crucifying the White Sox for doing this when they didn't have to. And the Sox know it. You think it matters to Jerry? Jerry doesn't care.
No,
Jerry doesn't. 10 years from now, Jerry's not worried about that.
But see example, different team, but since you brought up Trubisky, see example, Chicago Blackhawks. That is a team who gave out a lot of money and a lot of years and a lot of no movement clauses, not just no trade clause, but no movement clauses to a lot of people. And now those people are getting old and bad a lot quicker than they expected.
Look what the Cubs have done. They've gotten themselves hamstrung financially, and their window is now it's open, but they can't open it any wider like they want to.
No.
And so the Sox have, I believe, looked at all these different examples around them in their own town and then in Major League Baseball, and have tried to do things a little differently. I mean, look at what the Cubs did when they built everything. It was all players. Now they need pitching, and they have no pitching. The White Sox went with players and pitching. Look at their currency that they have. The White Sox are going to have pitching currency and outfield currency when this team comes together that they can deal to build up the team.
Now
they have a ridiculous amount of outfield currency. They're going to have a ridiculous amount of pitching currency.
Right. If I might interject for a second, just I thought of this as we just sit here. I think a lot of this is probably happening at this point now because of the fact that the Yankees have bowed out of this whole Machado thing.
Once the Yankees bowed out and the Phillies realized they couldn't beat them, the Sox know that they're done.
The Yankees came out and were like, look, we're not going to, the first thing that they said is that, that we heard is that the Yankees came right out and they're like, look, we're not going to tie up long-term years and big money into anybody right now. Because so much of what the Yankees has done has been homegrown. Then there was this whole thing from Yankees people that said, look, we should not be having to sell ourselves to Manny Machado. It's the other way around. He should be selling himself to us. So that really, I think that, Machado and his people were really hoping that there was going to be, a bidding war between the Yankees and a few other teams that had deep pockets that just didn't happen the way that they wanted to.
No, and it didn't. Now, here's what's happening. The Phillies have focused on Bryce Harper, and the Yankees have walked away. And the Machado camp is like, oh, no. So now we've created this mystery team that isn't real.
I hear that.
Nobody believes this is real.
No.
Nobody believes this.
Bruce Levine keeps saying that there's some mystery team.
Bruce Levine wants it to be the Cubs.
There's not. No, I know that.
He wants it to be the Cubs so bad, but it's not.
No, I know.
Okay?
And we've already talked about
I've already said the only possibility would be the Angels.
And
that was brought up. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. My dad and I were talking on the phone about that. And he goes, remember, the Angels, because we were talking about this about a week or so ago, he goes, remember, the Angels do that. They sit back, they wait, they got nothing but money, and then they just pounce on somebody, okay? And they've been known to do that in the years. So is that the mystery team? No, I don't think that they're going to do that.
I don't think it is either.
They are not doing it.
And we've talked about how Bruce Levine completely showed his ass on Twitter a couple of weeks ago with that whole thing.
These guys, this Machado camp doesn't have another option. See, Rick Hahn has done a masterful job of creating a great landing spot, putting out a competitive offer, and relaying to teams like the Phillies and the Yankees that we will outspend you. And by doing that now, the Phillies and Yankees have moved on. The greatest thing that could happen for the White Sox is if the Phillies signed Bryce Harper. And then they were like, that's it. We can't afford to do this with Manny Machado too. That'd be crazy. And now you don't have anybody in it.
Now, a couple of things.
And if I were Machado's camp, that's what they're weighing right now. Do we sign now? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to push the Sox for a little bit more and sign.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. If we could just push them a little bit more, let's sign. Because the moment that Harper signs, their offer is never going up again, Manny.
Right.
And that's what they're telling him right now.
Well,
so it's like, well, let's see what we can squeeze. Let's get a media blitz. Let's do this. That's what's happening. And that's how close we are to this.
And I'm going to tell you something else, too, regarding both what the Phillies and White Sox have done. Both of the Phillies and White Sox people, and in our case, Rick Hahn himself, has said, look, if we don't get either of these guys, oh well.
Right, because the Sox don't have anything to lose.
We continue with the plan because the Sox haven't had anything to lose. Now, what the Phillies have said, the Phillies have put this whole thing out where, hey, look, if we don't get either of these two guys. If we don't get Harper, if we don't get Machado, that's fine, because we're thinking Mike Trout in a couple of years anyway, because he's a homegrown Pennsylvania guy. We can afford him by then. We'll be competitive by then. So both teams have put out this whole thing of, hey, you know what? If we don't get either of these guys, oh well, no skin off our
and listen,
backside.
I don't want to say anything's bad happened, but in an era where lately players have been sitting around saying the salaries aren't where they are, and we think that, they believe that these teams all talk to each other. You don't think these two general managers, you don't think there's a possibility, I'm not saying it's happened, but you don't think there's a possibility where they haven't had a conversation like, well, what are you going to do?
Oh, the Phillies and Hahn?
What are you going to do?
I'm sure there has been.
Well, we prefer Machado. Well, we prefer Harper. Okay, well, then you guys make your push at Harper. We'll make our push at Machado. We'll stay away from yours and not offer anything, and you don't bother ours. We'll both get our guys. You don't think that's possible?
Oh, I think it's entirely possible.
And then do you not also think it's possible that the reason the MLB thing was taken down, this is my last point because we've run out of time today.
Right.
The reason the MLB tweet was taken down is because the White Sox have said over and over again in the press, they said it at the winter meetings, Rick Hahn says it in almost every publication where he comes out and talks about how the MLB rules prevent us discussing or disclosing or giving anything true or false about what's going on in negotiations.
Yes.
And the White Sox complain to Major League Baseball that you're breaking your own rule by putting it out there. Take that off your Twitter account because you're affecting our negotiations.
Yep. You
don't think that's possible?
It's
Because
very
I think that's
possible.
what happened.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Okay. And that to me tells me that you have one team that has said Harper's our guy and one team that said Machado's our guy, and neither one of them is going after the other guys. Isn't that interesting?
And neither player is getting what they want.
And neither player is getting what they want, and they can't find another team to leverage. And they're stuck, and it's over. And you have these two egotistical agents that can't understand why. And they're holding their clients saying, come on, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. Do we sign before the other guy? And now they're in the middle of this frenzy, and all Rick Hahn has to do is sit back, put his shoes up on his desk, put his hands behind his back. Kenny's lighting a stogie in the corner. Jerry's laughing like a maniacal rich man, and they're gonna get their guy.
Right.
That's what I think.
Right.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Who cares? I'm just a podcaster. But that's what I think. We're just two guys in a basement. But
Just two dudes.
That's what I think. Remember, open outcry tonight. If you're listening to this on the first day, it comes out on Wednesdays. Wednesday the 16th, open outcry night for Sox in the Basement. 10934 Southwestern Avenue. Starting at 7, we'll be there at least until 9, but Dave and I most likely will hang out even later. We're going to record a podcast at some point. There's going to be a live band. So with the live band, I don't know how much of the podcast will be broadcast through speakers to the crowd.
Right.
It might just be kind of huddle up in our area. We're going to have right up in the front and stuff like that. You can go anywhere. We're going to come out and interact with the crowd and stuff like that. There's going to be great music for you. But, some of it might be broadcast to the crowd, and it might just be like, come on over and hang out with us, and we'll record some spots.
There's good food. There's good beer. Get some swag for SoxFest.
I'm a big fan of, I used to do live radio broadcast, and I love the freedom of a podcast because we can record something for 5-10 minutes. And then we can walk around and speak with everybody. And then we can have a fan say, hey, I got this great idea, and we can sit down with them. And we can talk to all the people. I can record for 3 hours and find the best stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the beauty of doing it. So I think that we're going to have a lot of fun experimenting with that and doing our first live event at Open Outcry. Come out and join us. We're looking forward to see you. We got those free autograph hats for SoxFest 2019. We've got all kinds of other swag, not only from Sox in the Basement, but from the White Sox, who gave us a bunch of stuff to hand out. And we got so much stuff, it's going to be easy to hand it all out. I'm pretty sure of it, okay? Awesome. Should be great. We will see you there.
See you guys
if you
there.
Missed it, don't worry about it. We will see you at SoxFest. That is coming up. We're going to be out there for those 3 days, and details in our next episode. This is Sox in the Basement. I'm out of breath. I need a beer.
It's 10 in the morning. No, it's not. It's what time is it now?
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudi's Basement. Broadcast Basement. The Nudi's Basement. The Broad Basement. Slancha. That was like Dropkick Murphys or something, right? I felt like it.
Socks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.